I didn't watch Digimon, so I can't like
Lol,
speak on it.
lol,
Yeah.
lol.
I mean, I was telling you, like, like, so humans technically can come from fishes, dude. That's Pokemon. But you're making like an
Well, what I'm
example,
saying
like,
here is that
dude,
what I'm
that's
saying
like
here,
fishes.
what I'm saying here is
Yeah,
that like
lifting
each.
their eyes. Bro,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. So,
Pokemon, dude.
no, what I'm saying, yeah. So what I'm saying here is that like each, like you can always draw a chain from one. So there's going to be a common ancestor between us and chimpanzee. You get what I mean? Because we came from the same population of those apes, but those apes no longer exist. Yeah.
So, so you're a descendant of a chimpanzee, right?
No, I'm not a descendant of a chimpanzee. I'm saying we and a chimpanzee have the same common ancestor. It's the same population of apes.
So how can you prove that? Like,
Well, there's different lines of evidence: fossil record, genetic evidence,
Right.
embryology, not. I don't know why I said no, you know, the morphology and so on. Yeah.
So
there's
an
different
alternative
lines of
analogy
evidence.
is language, right? So I posted the Old English version of the Lord's Prayer in side chat. No particular person or particular group of people ever switched from Old English to contemporary English, right? It wasn't one day people were saying Vater and however you pronounce this, and then the next day they were saying Our Father who art in heaven, right? That never happened. You know what I mean?
You broke up. You broke up discernible for me at least. I don't know.
bro, it just happened. It just happened, okay?
But no particular person ever switched from one to the other.
Yeah.
Am I coming through clearly?
Yeah, I
Yes.
do understand. Yeah, I understand you.
Right? It wasn't like one day Bob was speaking the first one when he said the Lord's Prayer, and then the next day he started speaking contemporary English. That change never took place for any particular person.
Yes. So I guess that's a good analogy. Yeah.
Well, evolution says that all these parts evolved, just so happened to evolve, right? Just so happened to emerge in the organism from one generation to the next, or like during its lifetime, during the lifetime of one.
You realize that? Can I say something? You realize that all organisms that like us are multicellular organisms. So we're a group of organisms. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, but certain, but like multicellular organism has specialized like
we're literally made up of different organisms that also
but like
have
those
evolved.
But those different organisms have different functions, right? They have different functions and they have different roles that involve in the whole, right? So yes, you're right. Technically speaking, we're multicellular. Like our cells are distinct and we're many in one. But the cells of the liver are just as necessary as the cells of the lungs and the cells of the kidney, the cells of the pancreas, and so on and so forth, right? Even though they're distinct cells, yes, you're right. You still need them to work in harmony, right? You need them in conjunction. It's like a car, it's like a car or a plane. You need them to work together, right, in order for them to work. And that to me, is not something that can be done like a sort of by a process of random selection,
But that's like impossible to prove. And past examples of this, right? Like the main past example of this, the bacterial flagellum, a piece by piece development was shown.
Okay, but we're talking about a bacterial flagellum, and I'm sure that I know what you're talking about, and I'm not entirely sure because I haven't looked into this in a while, but I'm pretty sure that was like shown to be false. No, like the attempt at rebuttal to Behe's argument.
Oh, I guess I'm not entirely up on any of this stuff, but like claims that X can't work, they're always going to be subject to future research, right? Like that can't be a refutation of a claim.
Yeah, no, it's just I don't know if you've ever heard his argument, but to me it seems kind of obvious, that like we have different parts to our physiology, and you know, and that some of those parts are essential for our functioning and survival,
Yeah, for
our
us
mere
today,
survival, right? Not just.
but not necessarily an organism in the past. Or a different part did that function, or it didn't have that function, and that's why it didn't survive.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like I look at I look at the design of the human body, and to me it's just it it uh it seems to be like the what would you call it? There seems to be functions to its different aspects of its physiology, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess yeah, like and what you're saying is that maybe in previous iterations of this design or this blueprint, there was some features of it that were missing or that were um, that were added, right? And it was like a back and forth. But we look across the board, right? In all our organisms, there seems to be like a general kind of like almost like a universal sort of way to which organisms are designed, right? Except for like in the case, obviously, of like organisms like like fungi or or like unicellular bacteria.
Yeah, it's strange to me to hear you say it's universal and then immediately give counterexamples.
What was that?
It's strange to hear you say that it's universal and then immediately give two counterexamples.
Well, it is universal in the sense that they're all like basically functioning on relying on the same kind of like sort of biochemical processes. But yeah, like I'm talking about like higher order organisms, right? Like if even from bugs, if we start going by bugs, they have the same general design, right? Yeah, like these lower order organisms like fungi like lack that kind of like, but even then, like they still have like, you look at the structure of a cell, right? It has like the same general outline, multicellular organisms have the same general outline. What's a cell called when it lacks a nucleus and its its genetic material is all over the cell, but even those have like a same general outline, I would say, right?
You, you, but I guess I don't know what you're saying. The same general outline, like across kingdoms.
Like an outline, like they have like um I haven't done
Don't forget
biology in so
plants.
long, but yeah, plants and well, think about I don't know, like the structure of a cell, like you have like the same general parts, like the membrane and the what was it, the cytoplasm, the nucleus, stuff like that, right? The organelles, right? Organelles, right? Like what is an organ, right? It is a kind of compartmentalized sort of structure, right? That accomplishes a certain function within the cell, right? And every part to the cell has a specific function.
All right. So you're like finding similarities of function across kingdoms. But so So it's like, so what wouldn't that also be expected on common design? Sorry, common descent. Plus, common descent offers explanations for tons of other things that common design just sort of has to accept in an ad hoc way.
Like what, like retroviruses or stuff like that?
Yeah, stuff like that. Like, of course, an
Endogenous
omnipotent designer can
a lot.
create
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, no, and if it's the same general outline, I don't see the issue with like certain strands of genetic material being the same across different organisms, like especially like because like the creationists say that yes, we are kind of like related to humans. It's just we have an added feature to us, which is our rational soul, right? If you want to like use Aristotelian language, and we're basically like rational monkeys, right?
I agree the creationists are related to humans, yeah.
I guess my main question for people who
Oh.
claim common design is like, why would God give everything the same design? Because he's not constrained by biology or physics, right? God could create things so they don't appear to have common descent at all. There's no constraint on how God creates.
Say that again. Yeah, no, but like it's unity and diversity. Like there's diversity, but there's unity as well. Like we all share the same physiology, biology, but we're also different. There's like it's not just a feature of animals, but you could say of the whole material world as a whole. It seems like the cosmos has a general outline, but that general outline allows for a ton of that diversity, if that makes sense, right? Like you can have like a star, but you can have many kinds of stars and many kinds of black holes and many kinds of solar systems and galaxy structures and even types of stellar systems, so on and so forth, and it seems to me that like there's a kind of like a general, like the creativity is expressed within that very broad pattern, so to speak, that very broad universal pattern.
My only problem with the creationists really is that they're wrong.
I disagree.
Okay,
you're going to be able to find
wrong?
I know you.
You're going to be able to find like the universal quality of existence in everything. I mean, if you think existence is a quality, you're going to be able to find that in everything, anyways, right? Like just
exactly, yeah.
But why all the other commonalities?
We share existence with our creator.
But why all the other commonalities?
We share existence with our creator. Because it reflects our creator, right? It reflects the kind of
I mean, the commonalities.
It's an expression of
for common descent.
Why not?
Well, that's precisely the problem. There's no answer to the
know?
question because common design can explain any observation.
So, yeah, but you see, the point is that common design is an answer to a very obvious problem, which is like the idea that like this clear teleology and function and individuated purpose, emerge from essentially, pure entropy, like just like cosmic entropy. And to me, that seems like a...
Don't equivocate final cause with function. Those aren't necessarily the same thing.
Oh, I think they are. I think function and final cause can be like used interchangeably. In fact, I would argue that that's what Aristotle originally meant by that, right?
Well, exactly, but that's the problem, right? Like, I don't have to believe my heart's final cause is to keep me alive to say that it's my heart's function to pump blood. Like, those two things can be separated.
I don't think that makes much sense, man. I think that your heart is literally intended to keep you alive.
Yeah, why? Like, that's its function. That's what it does.
What is the difference between that's what something does and that is its purpose? Because it seems to me that, like, if I say, well, the engine of a car, pumps fuel into the chamber and causes an explosion, which then causes kinetic motion and transfers to the wheels through the cylinder or whatever. That's what it does. But, like, what is the difference between me saying that that's what it does and that's what its function is, or that is its purpose or whatever?
Well, because the function's observable. The final cause is like a theoretical posit.
Oh, so it's like you're saying I'm superimposing something?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess that would be an issue of if you're saying that, like, there would have to be like a so what would justify me imposing this notion of final cause onto, let's say, a tree, like an acorn, having the final cause to be an oak or something, or like a tree's branches is so that it may grow leaves and absorb sunlight, so it can, like,
Yeah,
survive. And
I think believing that is basically you have to, like, drink the Aristotelian Kool-Aid to believe that.
really, so
Yeah,
what would
metaphysical
what would
claims only make sense within the context of a metaphysical system, right? So you just sort of have to accept the system before any of those particular claims are obviously true.
see? I don't know. I don't know how you can. I mean, like, I'd like to understand where you're coming from, but to me, it seems like a kind of like self-evident positive reason that things have purposes, right? I just it's an observation, but it's also a kind of like unavoidable conclusion, in the sense that, like, we, for example, in the field of biology, we cannot help but talk about function. It's like in the very language we express these sort of notions that we employ, right, when we talk about these things,
That's
especially
function,
about life, but
not final
even
cause.
more so, even yeah, but see, like, the that seems to be like a kind of what's the word? Your I don't know if there's a term in logic for this, but it seems to me that you're, like, saying it without saying it. You're trying to avoid directly stating the conclusion that we're discussing, but also retreating into this, like, vague, kind of ambiguous notion of function, because it seems to me that, like, to me it seems like a distinction without a difference, right? Like, I see and you're saying that, yes, it's like a theoretical notion, but that's the point, is that, like, nature itself is driven by telos, it's driven by purpose. It seems to me that, like, we cannot.
Well, we can take a specific example, right? A
could I just say
specific
something very
example of
quickly?
something happening in nature. So, like, bears in the salmon run, right? You've seen the videos of bears, like, lining up in rivers to catch the salmon.
Yeah.
Right. So the bears gorge themselves on salmon, and then they go out into the bush and they do a lot of shitting, and they leave behind half-eaten salmon corpses. And all of that becomes fertilizer. Right. We can describe that as a series of functions. But to equivocate on function and final cause, it seems like you're going to have to say that the purpose of a salmon is to fertilize the forest. That the final cause of a salmon is to fertilize the forest, rather.
Yeah. So like, it's the circle of life. I think a Buddhist would be happy to accept that, right? Someone like a Buddhist,
I think,
or like
but Emmanuel, you kind of lean straight away onto that. It's teleological, what we see. And the person on the other side of this argument can just as easily say, "No, it appears to be teleonomic." So whether it's you say it's designed, but we don't have evidence for the designer.
But that's the point. Is like the fact that there is a design is the evidence of the designer, right? It would be like saying like
So the appearance of design.
I'm sure that you've
is
heard.
what it is.
That's circular again. When you say
There's
Yeah.
a further issue, though, right? When bear populations go down, or when fish populations go down, then there's less fertilizer in the forest. So bear populations go down, fewer fish get eaten, less fertilizer gets spread, right? Does that mean fish are
Yeah.
failing to live up to their final cause? Like, are they bad fish?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, in a sense, you would have to. It's less than ideal, right? Like, if something is not accomplishing its function in nature, or like, it might sound silly, but if I don't know, it's a good example.
Right.
If
Like,
if
you're
if a
saying they're
tree
deficient
is
fish
not
because they're not being eaten by bears?
well, yeah, it might sound silly, but if you think about it, like fish are just as equally dependent on other organisms that they have to consume in order to survive, right? And so like there's a hierarchy, there's like a food chain, right? Plankton, is being consumed by these little like sort of like tiny sea creatures, and then those tiny sea creatures by other fish, and then those fish, and so on and so forth, right?
And those food chains are altered
of course,
by invasive species or environmental changes.
yeah, and that causes disasters. Yeah, absolutely. And like just because we can understand, just because we can like sort of perceive like what the equilibrium in an environment is, or what the like we can observe that, we can intuit that, we can deduce what would be like an equilibrium in an environment, in a localized environment, and
Yo,
say,
what's up,
yes,
Beyonder?
this.
What's up, bro?
But those
Yes.
those
What's up?
equilibriums, they're not necessary, and they change. Oh,
Those equilibriums are
all the pills and Parker.
those equilibriums seem to have like, as far as we're concerned, right, like
Yeah, that's facts.
seem to have like sort of, unless you're saying that
Can
those
you stop
equilibriums
interrupting
are
the
just
conversation?
incidental.
Sorry.
Sorry, what were you saying, Manuel?
Yeah, no, like it seems to me that like, unless you want to say that those equilibriums are incidental, right, that like the kind of specific features, and I know that like natural selection attempts to explain this, but to me it seems to be putting the cart before the horse, right, in the sense that like, well, those organisms were selected for that environment, for that localized environment, because they had a slight edge over other organisms, right? But to me that seems like obvious, right? Like it seems like a non-starter to say that, well, the organism that we currently observe in this environment had a slight survival advantage, and therefore was able to reproduce at a higher rate and thrive in that environment, right? To me it seems like, I don't know, it seems to me like that it's just as equally, if not a better explanation, to say that organism was made for that environment, like the whale was made for the sea, or the
whale wasn't originally made for the sea.
The seagulls were made for the beach, and like the cacti were made for the desert. You know what I mean? Like it seems like
do you know where whales come from?
Whales.
Do you know the history of cetaceans, which would be the line that includes whales? Like, there's a really good fossil history of it, and you can see that they come from whales, and cetaceans come from four-legged land
That's very
animals.
tentative, man. Yeah, that's
it's not
very tentative, man.
There's an excellent fossil
Very,
record.
very tentative.
It's not tentative at all, man.
I don't know. I've seen like the kind of inferences that are made in archaeology, and I don't know. I just don't buy it.
Well,
I'm sorry, I just don't buy
I
it.
think
Paleontology,
I'm
not
told
archaeology.
that that's pretty established, but I could be wrong about that. What if it is true?
What if it is true? Well, yeah, like I to my worldview, like there are many theists that are like Darwinian evolutionists and believe in natural selection and the diversity of species arising from a single organism, and
They believe in the truth.
the multiplication. Well, no, that's what's in question, right? Whether or not it's the truth is remains to be seen. But